do not let someone else define your career path. You've gotta get out of your box and grow your confidence. And a lot of us are scared to do it. We're scared to talk to our leaders and say, hey, this is what we really want to do in our career. I really started networking more to learn what other leaders are doing and kind of changed my skill set. At the end of the day, I think that you have to create and establish a team that can operate at a high capacity and they aren't constantly in fire drills. And that, to me, is success.
Welcome back to Pulse, where we have real conversations with HR leaders about what it takes to grow and lead in today's workplace. In this episode, we're joined by Dani Woods, an HR technology leader who became an HRIS director at just 27. But this isn't just a story about title progression. It's about confidence. It's about stepping into the job before you're officially given it. And it's about refusing to let someone else define your career path. Dani shares tactical advice on moving from HR operations into HRIS, when directors should step out of configuration work, how to build and justify an HRIS team, and what defines success at the leadership level. This episode is packed with tactical career advice to help you take your career to the next level. Let's get into this episode. Dani, you posted on LinkedIn this morning about a tire going out.
So now looking back, I think I have an idea. So I hope that Texas PD is not listening in on this, but I was doing way too high of speeds this morning. I was headed to yoga, but the problem is I needed to leave my house at 5:22. I woke up at 5:20. So if you can imagine, I'm shooting out of bed, running to my car, going to yoga. I was getting so stressed out just trying to get there. And I was driving way too fast. I get there and it's completely fine. I take my class. I do an ice bath. I should, by definition, have a great day. And then I come out and I go to my car and it says low tire pressure. I normally ignore that because, to be honest, I'm I don't know. The weather's been fluctuating. I'm probably totally fine. And then it said 0 PSI. I actually don't know what PSI stands for. So if anyone listening in does and you could educate me, that'd be great. But it was completely empty. I had to, first I called my dad panicking. And I was like, what do I do? And he's like, you just go to the gas station, put air in your tire. And I did. But then the air thing didn't work, which could have been user error, to be totally honest. And then I immediately call my boyfriend. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, all right, I'll come meet you, whatever. I ended up taking an Uber and I left my car in a parking lot and I took off, and then him and his dad took care of the rest. So it's currently getting fixed.
Good. I also enjoy driving a little too fast. I lived in Germany and I got really used to the Autobahn having no speed limits. So for anybody that travels there and wants to drive, it is an amazing experience, especially because cars are built for it and the roads are as well. But we're actually not here to talk about cars because I know absolutely nothing. And really what we joined for is Dani is going to give us a little bit of career advice about how to become an HRIS director by 27. I'm not 27, but maybe there's some stuff in here. But Dani, we've been working for a few months together, and I actually haven't asked you what your career trajectory even was. So, or at least the details, like a job interview. So I want to kind of start there to contextualize for everybody joining if they don't already know. Maybe everybody already knows, and I'm just the only one not.
No, I rarely tell people what I actually want to do. I kind of learned a lesson early on that become careful, what you tell people, depending on if your ideas are fully fleshed out. And I think I really kind of hid behind it for a long time. And just this past week, you probably saw on LinkedIn, I finally kind of started opening up about my story, because I've been posting a lot of content for the past year and I don't really share personal things because I was kind of taught LinkedIn's not Facebook. But I decided that LinkedIn is Facebook. So I'm going to go ahead and share it all. But I'm still figuring out what I want to be when I grow up. And I actually wanted to be a lawyer, which probably doesn't come as a shocker to a lot of people that know my personality. Yes. And the reason I want to be a lawyer is I always said I love to argue, which I don't think that's a good reason to become a lawyer, but my parents still think I should do it. Yeah, I should probably still do it. So I had started in as an HR assistant. I didn't even have my bachelor's degree. I had already started in HR. I ended up pivoting because I realized that a lot of lawyers I had talked to weren't very happy, and that kind of scared me away. So I convinced a company to hire me, fresh, still in school. And then kind of fast forward a bit, I became a director at 27. I'm no longer 27, unfortunately, but I did become a director. And I explained this in our newsletter that we have, Logan, where I felt super empty. Like I was excited. I got the phone call. It was so fun. The people that wanted to tell me about it were excited, but I was chasing this validation that like I was good enough and I could do it at a certain age after I felt like my age held me back and people looked at me differently for being too young. So I did that. And then I realized that's not what I want to do. So I actually have big news, but I'm not going to share it yet because I'm just not ready after I announced that I went independent. There's something else as a quick change, and I am going to be back into corporate America. So I am really excited about that. But most of you also know that I did career coaching kind of in the beginning of the year. It was something that the industry signed me up for. I started getting a bunch of DMs of people that just wanted advice, really, how to take a roadmap and spin it and sell it to executives, or that their boss was giving them a really hard time and they didn't know how to grow. So that kind of started as a business, but I had to take a step back after I had gotten the director job and then I was doing career coaching and then I got laid off on top of all of it. And I was like, what do I want to do? And I actually don't want to be an HRS for the rest of my career at all. I am in the middle of starting a foundation. So it's not even tech related. I'm actually going to start transitional housing for domestic violence survivors. So I'm going to work with women and help keep them off the streets and then help them with their career, get resources, and just kind of help them keep moving throughout like the most tragic thing that has happened to them. So that's actually what I'm doing long term, but I need to do this until I can get a full foundation spun up and work on a nonprofit.
Really awesome.
It's way different than you probably expected. Yeah. No, I don't like it's not, I'm going to be a CHRO. Like I am doing this and I love it and I'm excited, but I'm going on and I want to be in the community. And I actually am thinking about going back to law school so I could be a lawyer in the community as well. I really just want to like work for free. If I can get to a point that I can just work for free, like these 50s, that's what I want to do.
It's pretty good. I mean, sometimes people have independent wealth that helps them with that. None of us, but
Yeah.
hey, but I mean, going for the charity, like there is something about just working for something a little bit bigger, but
Yeah.
I do want to focus a little bit on, for the listeners, those that are in HRIS or are in HR and are looking for kind of what's the tipping point for making that next jump. One of the biggest jumps, I think, in careers is going from IC to people management. And there's a lot of barriers for everybody to not let that happen. But I guess like in that career trajectory and what you want to do, like what was the turning point in your career that sent you from being an IC to individual contributor to a director and kind of influencing strategy rather than just only doing hands-on work? If that's something people in the audience want to do.
Actually started doing the job before I was paid to do the job or before I had the title. And I've actually done that from when I was manager to senior manager to senior manager to director. When I was a senior manager practically for a year operating as a director. When I was an IC, I had realized, I look back on my kind of my whole career and the parts of it that I actually didn't like and I wanted to change. And I realized that the HRS managers and the directors have the ability to make Monday mornings great again for their employees. They have so much pull when it comes to instilling confidence in their team members, to up leveling them, overall to help them. So I had realized that if I really wanted to make a difference, I should probably step into management. And I got thrown into it. So we had gotten acquired, and then all of a sudden I had to create a whole new team because there was no one else to do it. I was an IC reporting into a managing director, and then I had to take over technology. So I just had to jump into it.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost the analogy of like dress for the job you want, not the job you're doing kind of a thing and doing it. And I think that
part
is
too.
actually a big piece of advice for growing your career is you don't get a promotion and then you start doing the job. You do the job and the promotion naturally comes.
Yep. The money comes with it. Yeah, it's a byproduct for sure of what you do.
So then what should, like, if you want to make that jump, like, how do you start doing the job of the next level, especially if it's strategy or maybe in your organization to make that jump, you're going to have to become a people manager. Like, how do you actually start doing those things?
Some tactical ways that I would do it is number one, okay, this is non-tactical, but you've gotta get out of there, out of your box and grow your confidence. And a lot of us are scared to do it. We're scared to talk to our leaders and say, hey, this is what we really want to do in our career, because you might have a leader that is insecure and doesn't want you to grow and they don't want you to outskill them. And that is so real. And I unfortunately have had several bosses that have been like that. So if you're facing that, I would start with something small. You start managing projects or you deliver higher quality work. You get involved with maybe road mapping. Maybe, hey, I've got a brand new idea. How about we do this? Can I pull you into this? Find problems and create solutions. Don't just take what you're given. You're never going to get far in your career if you do the day to day. That's average, right? You want to go beyond that. So start doing more, unfortunately, than you're getting paid for. And you'll eventually get there as far as management. But I would send my boss presentations. Like I would
Okay.
literally send them roadmaps that they did not ask me to ever create. And I would say, hey, I know you're working on road mapping. Here are some ideas. Feel free to use this if you want. And my leaders did use it. And then I think they started to see a different skill set that I actually had. And that takes discomfort. But you'll get over it.
Good. That is good advice. Like decks are interesting, and sending the presentations to your manager. Like I think a lot of times our audience is in private equity companies, and like the idea of sending QBRs and stuff to your manager, like in kind of a format, is a good way to start leveling up, I think. Next question I had. So as you start to grow into the strategic set, what conversations should you as a director or directors be having versus analysts or managers?
Typically, budgeting,
Okay.
headcounts, M&A, larger transactions. Maybe you're preparing the company to sell. Maybe you're preparing for divestitures. Those typically are kind of living within that position because they're a little bit more confidential. And then I would typically take any other functional area that they work on and I would have them lead that piece of it. So if they're maybe in benefits or they're doing absence, they can work with those leaders directly. And I would normally handle kind of the higher level, larger projects.
Okay. And then how technical should you be hands on at the director level, and what should you leave to others to get in the weeds with?
So such a hot topic. I had posted that I think HRS directors should stop configuring, and that's very bold. And I'm not saying you really should stop, but if I take a look back on when I was the most successful, it's actually when I stopped configuring as much. So I used to do probably 60% of my job was hands-on in the system. And I was bumping into my team members because I was kind of crossing into their modules because maybe we had overlapping projects and I felt like I was getting in their way. So instead, and I thought maybe I justified it with helping with their workload, but it might have been actually me and I needed to get out of my comfort zone of being the expert in the room and allow other people to grow. So I stopped doing that and I stepped away from probably like for 6 months of configuring as much. So I would do maybe a couple hours here and there. I would have like creative Fridays where I would jump
Okay.
into the system or I would learn something new about it. I'd be on community. I really started networking more to learn what other leaders are doing and kind of changed my skill set. So, but what I will say with that is if you are starting brand new teams, like I'm on my third of creating brand new teams, you have no headcount, you have no resources, and you have a system that you are inheriting day one of hire. So you need to configure as much as you feel confident. And what I mean by that is at the end of the day, if you have to execute, you've got to be able to know how to work this system. So having your default as I don't know that, I don't do that, doesn't work well when you've stepped at a new company and they're like, hey, I need this one report, or hey, this person's on leave. I can't put them on leave. What's happening? And you got to go look into calculations. So you still have to stay very well versed in order to do your job. But I don't think the day to day, should you be assigning security roles? No, but you better know how to.
Okay. I like that. Like I've always been like if you need to scale something, like I have to figure it out first and then scale it, rather than like just coming
Yeah.
in and bringing in a straight expert and then you have this black box and I don't know, personality thing maybe. But I've got a question. How can we move from HR ops role to an HRIS role is the question.
Ooh, that's how I moved. So
Oh,
I had started it. Yep. So I had started in HR operations and then moved into HRIS. And I think it's honestly probably the easiest transition compared to if you worked in maybe Total Rewards or other functions, maybe even IT. So if the person has Workday, it makes it a lot easier. What I did is I started jumping in with HRS and I would be their testing lead, which they're going to love that because they need help with it. I would help architect the processes and then work with, because operations typically owns it, I would work with my leader on redesigning it. And then I would work with the tech team and I'd figure out how they would do it. So I started with a lot of curiosity. And then I convinced my boss that I need to go through some Workday trainings because it's going to make me more effective in HR operations because I understand the system. So when employees come, I can find any efficiencies. And it worked. So, and then if you want to actually just kind of start configuring, if your company has Workday internally, normally I encourage voicing that you're interested in it, that you want to learn it. And because the talent is also typically more affordable if they bring someone internally versus externally. And then you're going to change your resume completely to start talking more of like processes and reporting and architecting. And it might not be as hands-on configuration, but the configuration is actually the easy one. If you take a couple Workday classes and you come from an operations background, because HRS teams are typically automating operations and operational processes like employment verifications, you're in the right spot because you own that process.
That's good. So, next one is for what to do if you have a boss that you take ideas, suggestions, presentations to, and they go nowhere / sit on them and don't move them forward to parties that may be interested.
That's a great one. Unfortunately, you're going to face this a lot with leaders that starting processes and creating new features takes a lot of work, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of mental capacity, and some leaders just don't want to do it. If you genuinely can't move forward with it, I would start finding maybe other ideas, maybe documenting it and continually, maybe even building it. I used to build things on the side. So let's just say I wanted Workday Assistant. If my boss didn't let it go through, because that's happened in the past, I would build it myself. I would literally plan the change management for it and learn it. And then I would hold on to that. And then it took me going to 2 different companies to actually get it because I could not get it through leadership. So my point is at some point you've got to feel some fulfillment, and you're not going to change your boss's behaviors and you're not going to get them to inherit anything they don't want to do. So it's either you figure out how to find the fulfillment by staying there and continually doing it and learning, or you decide on if that company is for you or not. But at the end of the day, you're going to face that everywhere you go because some companies just aren't ready for a lot of change. And if you do want a lot of change, I would go more towards like the tech side of the industry because they are rapid fire and all they want is so much change that it's overwhelming.
Yeah, that's a good call. So next one, how do you convince ELT, executive leadership, HRIS should be a team and that it's not just a 1 or 2 person operation?
I'm in the middle of this actually right now.
Oh,
So
awesome.
yeah, this takes a lot of education around what leaders think of HRS. I think sometimes the software is sold to us and we've been told by a client, hey, we can go ahead and implement with one person. One person's not running Workday. So I would take a look at all of your modules. I would take a look at what needs to be fixed. So I normally do like a heat map or something. Like I'll say you need 30 enhancements and benefits, 15 in HCM, put it on a heat map and show them that based off of the amount of work that is needed to stabilize the system, in addition, anything new is how many hours. And then I would do a little bit of math and take that and figure out how much headcount I need. So I turn it into, it's a big numbers game. Now I maybe feel overwhelmed and I'm like, are you kidding me? I can only have one person. I don't want this. This is overwhelming. But that doesn't resonate with budget owners. What resonates with them is that they either give you headcount to keep this system stable, or they have to accept the risks associated with this, which is if you don't have an integrations developer, great, fantastic. You got 50 integrations. So your option is you can either bring someone in that knows integrations, you can go with a contractor, or you can go with a partner. The other two, they're a little bit more expensive. So then you start talking about where could I hire this person if budget is an issue? Is it cheaper to do it in a different country? Can I go ahead with the US in different states? Like there's different ways to kind of finagle it.
Yeah, that's the way that you phrase that is like how execs are going to think about the business in general. It's cost and risks. And I think that's a very great way to put that. Okay, one of the other questions that we had chatted before that I'm actually gonna toss in is, how do you balance being seen as a technical enough without becoming the team's like default troubleshooter?
Yeah, I figured this out maybe just a year ago. So I've been spending my career really struggling with this because I'm known as the expert and I love that, but it's not long term, it's just not scalable. So the way that I put it is, I think you need to know how the system works, that you can jump in if there's a fire. So if there's an issue with absence, you can jump in and help your team member and be a resource to them. Because the last thing you want is for that analyst to say, my boss isn't really paying attention. They're not really in tune with what's going on. They don't understand it, so they can't advocate for me. They're going to lose a lot of respect for you. So if you can day to day know what they do and their domains and let them own it, then you get to be that senior architect. You get to help your team. And then at the leadership level as well, they know they can come to you and you can fix it, but that doesn't mean you should fix it. You're going to have your team members do, unless it's something confidential, then you will go ahead and do it.
Nice. All right. So next one, as you are hiring a new payroll HRIS director, what would be the must-haves to lead the HRIS function? What would be the must-haves to lead the HRIS function?
Okay, so this is someone that is kind of a dual hat. They've got payroll and they have HRIS at the same exact time. So number one, you're going to need integrations. And number two, you're at a bare minimum, you're going to need an analyst. Probably two to keep the lights on. That's lights on. And then, I'm sorry, did you say you have a Ferrari and you're driving a Honda Civic? Is that what I heard?
That is what.
Okay, that adds to the equation. Then I would say these are the teams that you need to keep this stable. And it's funny enough, 6, 7 different teams that I have been on, they all had a bare minimum of 3 hands-on individuals. Whether they make that director hands-on, because sometimes they do that for cost savings purposes, you still need a functional person and you still need a technical person. However, if you've got payroll and financials, I would say you're probably looking at 4 people. And then it depends on the amount of countries you have. It's not on the actual size of the company in HRS. I noticed it's the complexity of the different countries. And if you've got EORs and PEOs that are totally going to shape your system.
Yeah. And then I guess if you take that and plug in our answer from before about costs and risks, then you've got your way to build that 4-person team there. Okay. So next question, how can someone demonstrate senior level capability and leadership purely through skill and performance without having the traditional years of experience, so that aiming for roles like director before 30 sounds legitimate and reasonable?
So how I actually ended up getting here is after completely being told that I wasn't going to, like in so many roles that I had, even being a senior analyst. One thing I figured out is, like you said, if you dress for the job you want, typically going to get it. So it took a lot of confidence buildings, maybe a little bit of like brainwashing, to be totally honest, because even to me, being in a senior director role at the age that I am, under 30, it seems a little not feasible to certain people. But looking back, is every single stair that I would climb, I started off with not believing in myself that I could do it. And I didn't have it on paper. I would notice myself when I would talk, I would kind of like maybe lower my voice, feel less confident. And people started reading that. And one day I kind of had it. And I was like, I'm done. I had an executive tell me, she was like, yeah, I just don't see it in you. Like, I just don't think you're ready for anything. When I was I was a senior manager at the time. And I was like, you know what? You may not see it, but I do. And this may not seem like I could do this before a certain age, but I'm going to do it anyways because I don't care what you think. So then I redid my whole resume. I actually took a look at my experience and I started hearing what I had done, and I realized I was operating at such a lot higher level. So what I would challenge this person who chimed in is, a lot of people come to me and they come in and they're like, yeah, I'm just an analyst. I have literally found out that just the analyst is operating at a senior level and they just don't show for it because they haven't convinced themselves that they can't do it. So it doesn't seem feasible.
Yeah, that's you never like hearing when somebody is told they can't do something like that in a professional setting. At least I don't. It's just, It's you got to have the growth mindset. Yeah, believing in yourself is important. Okay, so as you're growing in businesses, because businesses are ran by numbers and metrics to measure success, what metrics define success for, a director of HR technology, and who owns measuring that?
So I have found that I'm not going to find it in reporting of what I have defined as success. Mine is my team members want to come to work on Monday morning. That I can feel that there's calmness in the business. Normally the businesses I walk into, like especially in private equity, because that's typically where I operate in, is everything is so chaotic and broken. And by the end of it, when I'm ready to hang my hat up, is the business calmer? Is HR operating at a different level than they were in the beginning? And that's actually how I define it. So I used to sit here and pull metrics on like, what's our response time and how many projects did we close and how many modules did we launch and all these new features. You can put as much features out there as you want. But if your team members are turning over, they don't want to show up because you are overworking them, and the business doesn't care about your new feature because they don't even know about it because you didn't communicate properly, that doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, I think that you have to create and establish a team that can operate at a high capacity and they aren't constantly in fire drills. And that to me is success.
That's good. I once had as I had become a new people manager, or somebody tell me like, what do you want your team to be known for throughout the company? And like the calmness and success, like all of that, like you have to almost have a little bit of that vision ahead of just doing stuff. Dani, is there anything else you want to cover here to give the audience confidence in making that next step in their careers, whether that's going from, technical HRIS to director or something else? Like, is there something you would like to leave everybody with?
I would say at the start of it is, part of the story, and I think the theme this week is do not let someone else define your career path. I've seen a lot of layoffs happen, especially on social media. People are leaving, toxic cultures of different areas. And that doesn't have to be your story. That doesn't have to be what you remember of your past employer or your history. But one of the best things you can do, use that as fuel to get to actually where you want to go.
Yeah, that's really great. I'll do a little mic drop here for don't let anybody define you.
You forgot to say LFG, and then you got a mic drop,
Yeah, I don't really want to buy another mic, and I don't know if my desk will actually take the blow of my mic, but hey. Dani, I really appreciate jumping on. I hope everybody got value from hearing Dani talk us through some career coaching. Dani, thank you for joining us today.
And sign up for our newsletter. I am going to do the commercial here, so.
Oh, yeah, you should sign up for the newsletter. Dani runs that, and so you can listen to all of her expertise and not me. Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for joining in. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Pulse, the podcast that has real conversations with HR leaders linking people to performance. HR Bench is the people analytics platform that turns HR data into business strategy. It connects to all your tools, HRIS, ATS, payroll, surveys, whatever you're using. In just a few clicks, you get over 45 metrics instantly visualized in boardroom-ready dashboards, benchmarked by industry and company size. Book a demo at hrbench.com and we'll build you a custom benchmark report using your data.